There's one thing everyone fears, the silence of the late night. When the world is asleep, and all that remains is the sound of the wind and your own heartbeat. But for some people, that night wasn't just silence, it was the beginning of a real nightmare. These are true horror stories about people who were completely alone at night. Each story unfolds under the weight of darkness when there's no one left to call for help. Brace yourself, because sometimes the scariest thing isn't a ghost, but the human standing just outside your door. It was around 2:30 a.m. when she walked in. I was about halfway through my shift at the Shell off Highway 58 in Bakersfield. Tuesday night, or technically Wednesday morning, so things were slow, the air thick with fluorescent stillness and distant freeway hum. I'd stocked the fridges, wiped down the counters, and was halfway into a bag of spicy chips behind the register when the bell chimed a small sound that felt suddenly too loud. She stepped inside quick, like she was trying to avoid being seen. Her movements were sharp, nervous, almost hunted. Hood up, big sunglasses on, even though it was pitch black out. She paused just past the door like she was debating whether to stay or bolt. Hey, I said, brushing chip dust off my fingers. She looked around the store, then back at me. Can I wait in here just for a little while? Sorry, I just need to be inside, please. I just can't be out there right now. Her voice was low, strained. She kept looking at the windows like someone might be watching from the deep, silent darkness outside. Are you okay? I asked. You need help or something? No, I mean, maybe. Just don't make me go back out there yet, she whispered with trembling urgency in her breath. I looked out at the empty lot. Nothing. Just her beat-up sedan parked near the dumpster, its headlights faintly reflecting the flickering neon light. No other cars, no one else. I probably should have said no. Store policy's pretty clear about loitering, especially this late, but I found myself hesitating, with a strange chill of uncertainty without really knowing why. She didn't look drunk or high, just afraid, fragile, and desperate beneath the harsh fluorescent light, like she hadn't slept in a week. There's a chair in the back room, I said slowly. You can sit there, but if my manager calls and asks, I'm going to have to tell him every single quiet detail tonight. Yeah, that's fine. Thank you. She followed me behind the counter and through the swinging door to the supply room. I pointed to the metal chair by the mop sink and offered her a cup of coffee from the break table. She sat, didn't touch the coffee, just wrapped her arms around herself and stared at the floor in that tense, motionless silence that made the air feel heavier. I went back to the front, checking the parking lot every few minutes, feeling that strange, heavy quiet settle deeper. Still empty. About 20 minutes in, I peeked back in. You good? She looked up, nodded once. Yeah, just a little longer. I nodded and went back to cleaning up the coffee station, pretending nothing about her silence felt wrong. Another half hour passed, then an hour. She still hadn't moved, like the night itself was holding its breath. That's when I started to notice the weird things, like how she never drank the coffee, or how she never took off the sunglasses. She kept her hood up the whole time, even in the warmth of the back room. And every now and then she'd mutter soft words like secrets to herself, words I couldn't make out. I tried not to eavesdrop, but I heard my name once. That single quiet moment made everything inside me freeze completely. Had I told her my name, I couldn't remember. Around 4:10 a.m., I was restocking gum near the register when I noticed the security monitor blink, just a brief, eerie flicker that felt wrong somehow, but enough to catch my eye. I tapped the screen. It froze for a second, then went back to normal. A few minutes later, I heard the soft, deliberate ding of the front door echoing through the quiet store like a warning. Not someone entering, just the sound it makes when the lock is flipped from the outside. The quiet click sliced through the still air. My heart was already beating faster as I stepped around the counter, not sure what to expect. and then I saw them. Two Bakersfield PD officers standing just inside the door. One nodded at me. Their flashlights swept the aisles, slowly, cautious, and silent. Stores clear. Yeah. We got a silent alarm from this location. I frowned. I didn't press it. Cold dread crawled up my spine. They exchanged a look. You working alone tonight? Yeah, well, except there's a woman in the back room. She asked to wait inside for a while. They tensed up immediately, their faces shifting with sudden professional urgency and quiet fear. How long has she been here? Couple hours, I guess. What's she wearing? Hoodie, sunglasses. The taller cop nodded his hand, hovering near his belt. Stay behind the counter. They moved fast, voices low, but movements sharp and precise. One went around the side, the other cut through the back hallway. A few seconds passed in thick, suffocating silence. Then I heard one of them raise his voice. Hands where I can see them, followed by a brief scuffle and the sound of cuffs. She didn't scream, didn't protest. A minute later, they brought her out. She walked quietly, head down. No sunglasses now, just empty, unreadable eyes that seemed colder than the night itself. Wait, I said. What's going on? The cop closest to me pulled out a small notepad. She's been wanted for a string of thefts up and down the 58, stretching across long, lonely miles of desert highway. Grocery stores, gas stations, a couple of pharmacies. Always shows up late, acts nervous, people let her inside, then she either swipes something or disappears before the cops arrive. But she didn't take anything, not this time, and that's what scared me most. Maybe not this time, but she was flagged as potentially dangerous, manipulative. One clerk down in Teotihuacan let her stay the night in the back and found his register wiped clean by morning. She didn't even leave the room, I said, still trying to make sense of it. The cop just looked at me for a moment. Then, he said quietly, they told us not to be alone with her, especially during those quiet, empty, late-night hours. He paused. I already had been, I replied, for 2 hours. I work nights at a gas station just off Interstate 65 in Birmingham. It's a quiet, lonely, forgotten little corner of the city. It's small, old, just 2 pumps out front, and a soda fridge that hums loud enough to compete with the radio. It's the kind of place that's stuck in time, with faded walls, flickering lights, and cigarette ads from the 1990s, and a mechanical register that jams every 4th transaction. I'm 25, juggling night shifts and EMT classes during the day. Sleep's a luxury, but the long quiet hours start feeling heavier each night, and caffeine and adrenaline cover the gap. For the most part, the graveyard shift's uneventful. The occasional trucker, a blue-eyed college kid, or some guy just trying to make it to Atlanta without nodding off behind the wheel. But about 3 endless weeks ago, I started noticing a guy always there silent, watching. He never came in. He'd just stand across the street, always in the same spot on the sidewalk, next to the old pawn shop that's been boarded up since I was a teenager. He never looked directly at me, but he was always facing the store, just standing there under the flickering yellow streetlight that made his shadow stretch unnaturally long. There was no reason for him to be there. No smoke, no phone, no pacing, just still as stone, like time itself refused to move around him. At first, I thought maybe he was waiting for someone, a friend, an Uber. Who knows? But after the 4th night in a row, it got strangely unsettling under the pale streetlight glow. Same hoodie, same jeans, same blank stance. I mentioned it to my coworker Dan during shift change. He laughed it off like it was nothing serious, just another harmless local wandering again. Probably some guy from the house down the street. He said, they wander around sometimes. No big deal. I wanted to believe that. But halfway through my shift that night, I stepped out to take some trash around back. The moment I opened the dumpster lid, I got that gut feeling, a cold, crawling sense of being hunted. The kind you get when you know someone's watching. Sure enough, I looked over the edge of the building, and there he was again, completely still under the street light. Same spot, same stance, except this time his head was turned. Not all the way, just slightly, like he was listening for something only he could hear. I hurried back inside. For the next week, I kept tabs on him. Never moved closer. Never crossed the street. Just stood there until Tuesday morning. I got off a little after 6 a.m. Heart still uneasy, pretending calm, same as usual. Sun was just starting to rise, but it didn't feel like safety anymore. Sky kind of that hazy, pinkish gray, soft like dawn after too many sleepless nights. I clocked out, tossed my apron in the bin, and stepped outside, feeling that strange, temporary quiet. That guy wasn't across the street anymore. I looked around. No echo, no movement, just empty air. Didn't think much of it. Just figured he finally got tired of loitering. I got in my car and pulled out onto the main road, engine humming beneath the early morning silence, made a right toward the interstate. And that's when I saw the truck. Old Chevy, rusted, blue-cracked windshield about 5 car lengths behind me. I didn't think it was anything at first, until a quiet, uneasy chill crept in when I changed lanes for the ramp, and so did he. I slowed down a little. He slowed too. I took the exit. He took it. Now, my heartbeat matched the tire's low hum. I kept my eyes on the mirror, made another turn I didn't need to make. Each reflection looked sharper, hungrier, more deliberate. Looped through a Waffle House parking lot and came back around. He followed every move. At this point, my heart wasn't racing, but I could feel my hands tighten around the wheel, each pulse thudding heavier with cautious dread. My foot hovered over the brake, ready for anything sudden or wrong. I took a hard right onto a side street. No reason to. It led nowhere, but a dead end near some warehouses. A quiet stretch swallowed by fog and silence. Figured I'd see if he followed. He did. I made the call. 911 picked up quick, the sound steadier than my breathing. I gave them my location and described the truck. Told them I worked night shift and was sure this guy had been watching me for days with those silent, deliberate eyes from across the street. Operator kept me on the line, told me to keep driving if I could voice steady, but filled with hidden urgency. That's when I saw the flashing lights in my rear view, blue and red, a pulse of hope cutting through darkness. Relief hit me, but I didn't stop until the cop car moved between me and the truck, its lights reflecting like a barrier of safety. They boxed him in, made him pull over. I kept going and parked in a nearby gas station, feeling my hands tremble slightly with relief, the one I don't work at, and waited. A different officer came to talk to me 10 minutes later, said the plates were fake, registered carefully to a long-scrapped car in Texas. No ID on the guy, just a pile of empty fast food wrappers scattered like clues of a drifting life and a notebook full of addresses. One of them was mine, another was the station. They towed the truck, took him in. But here's the thing, he wouldn't talk not a word, just kept staring with that empty, cold stillness at the floor during the whole process. According to the officer, they ran his prints. Nothing came up, no record, no name, no trace. They held him overnight, then let him go. I don't know where he is now, never saw him again. But he knew where I worked, and he knew exactly where my quiet little house stood. The night shift had a rhythm to it. You come in, clock on, put your earbuds in, and start slicing open boxes until your hands smell faintly like old dry cardboard. Most nights, I didn't mind it. It was peaceful, in that lonely, mechanical kind of way. The store was empty, the lights a little too bright, the overhead music looping endlessly through the same hollow pop songs, but it was my space. Quiet, uneventful, comfortably predictable, until something finally changed. That night started no different. It was late October, the kind of cold where your breath fogs, even inside your car. I parked behind the store like usual, went in through the side employee entrance, and said a quick hey to Marty, the overnight manager. He was chewing a sad, lonely microwave burrito under flickering fluorescent light and barely looked at me. "Watch out for the mop bucket in aisle 10, he mumbled voice, heavy with tired indifference and routine. I grabbed my box cutter, scanned the incoming shipment roster, and wheeled my cart to aisle 3. Canned goods. Easy stuff. The kind of quiet rhythm that makes time disappear. I stacked, rotated labels, broke down boxes, trying to stay awake through the humming lights. Around 2:15 a.m., I was rolling my cart back toward the warehouse when I noticed him, a sudden shape breaking the calm silence. A man in an oversized gray hoodie, dark jeans, and work boots. Middle-aged, maybe. Hard to tell, but something about his stillness felt wrong. He was in aisle 4 under the cold, buzzing lights, staring at the refrigerated juices. Not browsing, not picking anything up, just staring. At first, it didn't seem like a big deal. Maybe he was tired or drunk or just weird. That kind of eerie calm always feels wrong. People show up at all hours, especially in Cheyenne. I gave him a nod as I passed, but he didn't look at me. Not once did his eyes flicker. Didn't even blink. I forced myself to keep working, pretending nothing was wrong. I kept restocking. 10 minutes later, I passed the aisle again. He hadn't moved, frozen like a mannequin in a silent store. Same posture, same spot, eyes locked on the orange juice section, like he was trying to memorize the labels, breathing slow and steady, like time itself had stopped. Something felt off. I mean, I get it. You want to stand and zone out, fine, but this was a whole new level of stillness, the kind that feels staged, too controlled. I tried to shake it off, pretending the chill on my skin was nothing. By 2:45 a.m., he was still there. I was working a few aisles over and finally decided to check in. Hey, everything okay over here? Need help finding something? Nothing. Not a nod, not a look, just silence. I stood there for a second, then awkwardly turned and walked away. That's when I first felt it that heavy, invisible chill creeping slowly up my spine like someone watching me. I didn't turn around. I just kept walking and turned the corner fast. I ducked into the back room and acted like I had something to do, trying to steady my breathing and heartbeat. Sat on one of the plastic crates and pulled out my phone, the screen glow cutting through the dark silence. I told myself I was being dramatic, but something about the guy, it wouldn't leave my thoughts that night. After a few minutes, I headed back out, forcing calm into every slow step forward. I peeked down aisle 4 again. He was gone. I scanned around, heart tightening with quiet dread. Nothing. Not in frozen, not in produce, not heading for the checkout. I figured maybe he left. But then as I was heading toward the front to check the exit footage later, I passed aisle 6 and saw him not standing this time, kneeling, so still almost reverent, back turned, pretending to look at bottom shelf sports drinks. But here's the thing. Right at that terrifying moment, his phone was up and the screen was on camera mode, focused sharply and deliberately toward where I had just walked. He had taken a photo of me. I kept walking straight to the stockroom. My heartbeat echoed louder than my footsteps. I didn't run, didn't flinch. I just walked, steady, calm. Once inside, I locked the door. The silence felt alive and heavy. I didn't want to believe what I saw. I kept thinking maybe he was taking a photo of a label or comparing prices. Maybe, but it didn't sit right. About 5 minutes later, I heard footsteps right outside the door. Just one step, then a pause, another step, then silence. I didn't move, didn't even breathe. After a while, I texted Marty, "Hey, that guy in aisle 4 still around. Something feels off tonight." No response. A minute later, I heard the side door to the warehouse open, its faint echo crawling across the floor. Marty poked his head in. "What guy?" I explained. He frowned and walked back out. 10 long, uneasy minutes dragged by, then 20. I started to feel stupid. Maybe I had overreacted. Maybe he'd already left. Then I heard Marty yell, Hey, what the hell you doing back there?" The shout echoed through the fluorescent silence. I bolted out. By the time I reached the front, my pulse racing hard, the guy was gone. Marty said he'd seen someone suspiciously duck fast behind the cereal display when he came up front. Said when he confronted him, the guy just took off without a single word spoken. We called the cops. The guy didn't come back that night. But when we pulled the security footage for the police, it got worse. He had come many long nights before, without anyone knowing. In 3 nights in a row. Always at the same haunting hour. Always between 2 and 3 a.m. Always when I was working. Always standing in aisle 4. The silence around him felt unnatural. Never bought anything, never interacted with anyone else. Just showed up, watched, and left. It made me feel sick. My stomach turned with quiet dread. The photo he took, no way to know what he did with it. That uncertainty was worse than any scream. The cops said he didn't steal anything, didn't hurt anyone, so there wasn't much they could do unless he came back. I just prayed he never would. I switched to afternoon shifts after that. And I still look over my shoulder every time I walk through a grocery store, feeling those unseen eyes still somewhere behind me. He knew my schedule, but I had no idea what he wanted, no clue why I had been chosen. Working night shifts at an ER sounds dramatic, but it's usually pretty quiet between 2 and 5 a.m. The kind of silence that hides tension beneath routine. I've been doing this job for 8 years now, and honestly, I don't scare easy. After a while, you get used to strange people, the echoing hallways, late-night rants, psych holds, and patients looking for pills. It's all part of the job. But one night in early December 2020, I had an interaction that stayed with me longer than any scream or silence ever did. It was around 2:50 a.m. The waiting room was empty, except for a young guy sleeping across 3 chairs, clearly high, not hurting anyone. I was halfway through a lukewarm cup of bitter black coffee that tasted like burnt plastic when the glass doors slid open and a man walked in. He looked like a nurse or maybe a tech. His movements were slow, deliberate, almost rehearsed. Scrubs, clean shoes, shaved head, some kind of ID clipped to his chest. Not unusual. We get night staff coming in to check on admitted friends all the time. What was off was how unnaturally, disturbingly silent he seemed. He stopped in front of my desk and said, "I'm here to see Melanie." I clicked over to our patient log. Melanie, last name. He gave me a blank look. Just Melanie. I tried to give a polite smile. I need a full name to check the system. He didn't argue, didn't press, just stood there for a long, silent moment that felt wrong and said, "She was admitted last week. I visited her. I just want to make sure she's okay." Still calm, still polite. But something about how he said it, it felt too rehearsed, like he'd gone over that line in his head again and again, perfectly practiced and strangely empty before saying it out loud. I checked the board again, filtered for female patients. "Sorry," I told him. "We don't have anyone named Melanie here tonight." He nodded like he expected that, smiled. Not friendly, just cold, deliberate, knowing. Just satisfied. Then he turned and walked out. Didn't ask to double check. Didn't argue. Just gone. That should have been the end of it. But I had this strange, crawling unease deep inside my chest I couldn't shake. I've learned over the years to trust that feeling. Not in a spooky way, just from experience. Sometimes a small thing echoes louder than any real danger. So, after my shift finally slowed deep into silence, I pulled up last week's logs and searched for any Melanie that had been admitted. Only one came up. Melanie Thompson, 27 years old. She'd been brought in for a psychiatric eval. Her intake form had some notes from the attending. I wasn't supposed to read them, but the quiet curiosity slowly overpowered caution and got the better of me. He stopped in front of my desk and said, "I'm here to see Melanie." I clicked over to our patient log. Melanie, last name. He gave me a blank look. Just Melanie. I tried to give a polite smile. I need a full name to check the system. He didn't argue, didn't press, just stood there for a long, silent moment that felt wrong and said, "She was admitted last week." It said Melanie had shown up at her workplace, claiming a man was pretending to be her husband, calmly mimicking every detail of her real life, that he'd visited her job multiple times, insisted they were married, and even said they lived together. But Melanie swore she'd never seen him before. The report said she seemed paranoid and distressed, but not violent. She was kept for a 48-hour hold, then released. That part's what really got me, because it felt too quiet. But I never verified an ID. No one had asked for her. No one came to check her out that night or the next morning, at least not through me. The note was there clear as day, but strangely wrong, like a ghost signature. So I pulled up the security footage. Wednesday night lobby camera, 2:17 a.m. There she was, Melanie, sitting in the corner, arms wrapped tightly around her legs, small and trembling. She didn't look well, but she wasn't causing trouble. I fast-forwarded. Nurses came, brought her back for eval routine. Then I skipped ahead to Friday morning when she was supposedly discharged. Nothing. No sound, no movement, only unsettling stillness. No one at the front desk. No one showing ID. No one talking to me or any of the staff. The air felt thick with something unseen. The doors opened a few times for staff changeover, but no visitors. So I checked the hallway camera instead, and I found it. Friday, 6:03 a.m., everything changed. Melanie walks out through the back hallway, not through the main lobby. She's accompanied by a man in scrubs, moving with eerie calm and precision. Same height, same shaved head, same unnaturally composed expression. The exact man who'd come to my desk earlier that week asking for her. There was absolutely no trace or record of him checking in that day. No footage of him coming through the front doors, no badge scans, nothing but silence and unanswered questions. It's like he appeared in the hallway and left with her. I went back again, checking every single detail in growing panic. Tried every angle, every camera. He's only ever caught on that one hallway cam. No entry, no exit, no trace anywhere else. I stared at the screen for over an hour, rewinding and playing as if repeating might change what I saw. Around 5:30 a.m., a nurse walked by and saw what I was doing. She leaned over and said, "Oh, that guy." "What guy?" I asked. She tapped the screen. "I saw him that morning too. I remember because I thought he looked like one of the float nurses, but I couldn't place him." She paused, then added her voice trembling slightly under the bright hallway light. "Weird thing. I thought I saw him in the psych unit the week before, just standing outside Melanie's room, not doing anything, just watching quietly like he belonged there." "Did he have a badge?" I asked. She frowned. I assumed, but now that you mention it, no. I asked her if she'd said anything at the time. "No," she said slowly. "He wasn't doing anything wrong, just standing there so calm and ordinary, it almost felt rehearsed. I thought he was staff." That night, I filed a formal report with hospital security, hoping someone would finally take it seriously. They said they'd look into it. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. I never heard back. Melanie's file was marked closed. That silence felt colder than anything else. No follow-up, no address on file. The number listed had been disconnected. Every trace of her seemed deliberately erased. A week later, I checked the system again just in case. Nothing. The man never came back to the front desk. I'd only been doing the overnight cleaning job at the clothing store for about 3 uneasy, sleepless weeks when this happened. Not the most exciting job, but it was quieter than the cafe I used to work at, and it paid better too. No customers, no managers breathing down your neck, just a steady, comforting rhythm of late-night routine. Just music in my earbuds, mop bucket wheels, squeaking, and a few swear words when I knocked over a folded pile of jeans. This particular night felt quiet, calm, and deceptively normal before everything changed. I clocked in around 11 p.m., said hi to the night security guy, Todd, who spent most of his shift in the back, quietly watching old TV reruns, and got to work. I don't want to say the name of the place, but it was one of those big retail chains with wide aisles, pastel dressing rooms, and way too many overhead lights that flickered in uneasy artificial silence when they weren't supposed to. I was almost done with the women's section when I noticed one of the changing room doors was closed. That wasn't totally weird by itself. Sometimes the evening staff forgot to check them before locking up. I figured someone had just left it shut, but the silence around it felt strangely thick, almost expectant. I knocked once, just out of habit. No answer. I waited a second, heart steady, but aware of every small sound, then pushed it open. Nobody inside. But someone had left a phone. It was standing up on a little tripod mount, its red light blinking faintly in the bright silence. Nothing fancy, just one of those flexible ones you can wrap around stuff, the kind you'd find in any cheap electronics aisle. It was angled directly at the mirror, like whoever set it up had wanted to record themselves, trying on clothes. Thing is, it was still recording. For a moment, all I could do was stare, frozen in disbelief, heartbeat loud in the empty room, trying to process what I was looking at. The little red timer in the corner had passed 10 minutes. At first I thought, okay, maybe someone forgot it here after close, but that made no sense. The store had been closed for over 3 hours, so why had the phone only been recording for 10 minutes? I turned around, scanning the fitting room hallway. It was dead quiet, the kind of silence that pressed against my chest. All the lights were on. Every other door was wide open, as if someone had prepared this eerie stage for me. I picked up the phone carefully, trying not to leave smudges, and hit stop on the recording. My reflection in the mirror looked like it had just seen a terrified ghost staring straight back at me. I wasn't scared exactly, but something didn't sit right, a quiet wrongness pressing against my thoughts. I didn't even want to watch the video. I just put the phone on the fitting room counter and slowly backed out into the humming silence. I went straight to the back and told Todd. He didn't take it that seriously at first, acting like this was just another slow night. "You sure it wasn't one of the closing shift kids?" he asked, looking up from his tablet. "Would they leave their phone recording for 10 minutes behind a locked door?" He shrugged, trying to sound calm, but clearly uneasy inside. But when I mentioned that I hadn't heard anyone leave, his face stiffened with a quiet dawning fear. Still, all he did was pull up the security camera feed on the flickering old monitor and rewind. We watched the last 15 minutes of footage from the side hallway near the dimly lit fitting rooms. And there he was, a man in dark jeans and a gray hoodie, hood up, no visible face, moving with unnerving, calm precision. He slipped in from the side emergency door near the back stock room, one that we were always told to keep locked, but somehow was already quietly open. Todd cursed out loud and jotted the time code. The guy had walked calmly to the fitting rooms, moving with unsettling confidence and precision, looked around and entered the one stall that would later be closed. A few minutes later, he left without the phone, like he wanted us to find it later. Then he went right back out through the same side door, silent, practiced, and disturbingly unhurried. "What the hell?" Todd muttered. I told him to check the footage from earlier nights because something here felt horribly rehearsed. He rolled his eyes at me, but did it anyway, and that's when things got significantly and disturbingly worse than before. The man had come in the same way 2 nights earlier. Same hoodie, same changing room, but that time he'd left with absolutely nothing but his silent confidence. We pulled up footage from 3 nights ago. He wasn't there. 4 nights ago, he was. We were starting to see a clear, repeating, and unsettling pattern forming. Todd said he'd reported to the manager in the morning and that I should go back to cleaning. I didn't. I went back to the fitting rooms and double-checked every stall, every corner, every tiny shadow that looked slightly wrong. I even checked under the bench in the closed stall. Nothing. But the vibe was different now, like something invisible had quietly taken its place in the air itself. The worst part, that side emergency door. It had an exit alarm that was supposed to blare if anyone opened it. but in that eerie silence, nothing sounded. But in the footage, the guy opened and closed it like it was just another staff entrance. He moved calmly like he belonged there. Later that morning, I texted my manager and told her what happened. She didn't respond until noon. Every minute waiting felt longer and colder. Her reply: "We've had no record of any door alarms going off this week. That hallway camera isn't even supposed to be recording unless motion triggers it." That sentence made my stomach drop completely. I asked her if she knew the guy. I described him carefully, my voice already trembling inside. Her answer chilled me more than anything. "There used to be a guy who worked stock here overnight. Back in 2019, he was let go for hiding in the store after hours. Said he just wanted some quiet, secret alone time away from everyone. I never saw him again. I never came back for another shift. They offered me a raise to stay. Said it was probably just a prank or someone with a grudge. I didn't care, because here's what kept echoing endlessly in my tired mind. That phone was still recording when I opened the door, and he had left it there on purpose. He must have memorized every small detail. He knew the shift schedule better than I did. If the night shifts can teach you anything, it's that sometimes the weirdos aren't just outside, but quietly breathing beside you." Thank you for watching and supporting the channel. If you'd like to share your own story to be featured in an upcoming video, please email me at nighthorrorstoriesYus@gmail.com. Every story has the power to touch someone's heart, and who knows, maybe your story will be the next one told. Send it in today, and let's share unforgettable moments together.